At a time when building techniques and styles are becoming increasingly uniform across the nation, Americans are beginning to place value on those man-made elements of the environment that have special character and that provide tangible links with the past. To achieve this goal, the Congress authorized the United States Department of the Interior to ensure the creation and expansion of a national register of districts, sites, buildings, structures, and objects significant in American history, architecture, archaeology, and culture. The National Register is the official list of historic properties worthy of preservation. Through an innovative state and federal partnership, each of the 50 states was encouraged to initiate a survey and review process to discover historic properties. Delaware has been energetic in seeking out, honoring, and preserving those signposts of the past which mark its historic and cultural development. The majority of National Register properties are the well-preserved homes of individuals from all walks of life. Denominations include dwellings representative of all domestic architectural styles and periods, and their associated outbuildings embodying the qualities of historic life and work. Archaeological remains are also eligible for listing in the National Register and vital for a richer understanding of life in the past because they may yield unique information about life in distant times. Their recognition and preservation is a key aspect of the National Register. Archaeological nominations include both prehistoric Indian sites and the remains of historic settlements. Because Delaware's industrial heritage has played such an important part in the state's economic and historic development, sites and structures ranging from water-powered grist mills to manufacturers for snuff, gunpowder, brick, and lime have been placed on the National Register. National Register nominations also touch on places of business and the means, including railroads and ferries, for moving people and goods through the state. With its extensive coastline, Delaware also maintains a maritime character, and navigational aids such as lighthouses, beacons, and life-saving stations have also been nominated to the register. Public buildings and places of worship are important symbols of secular and spiritual life in Delaware and are worthy of recognition. National Register districts can be defined where concentrations of these historic elements have survived and have come together in city, town, or village. It is in these special circumstances that one can best appreciate a genuine sense of time and place for bygone eras. At present, over 300 properties and districts are listed on the National Register in Delaware, but as survey process continues, we might be inspired by an inscription on the tomb of the renowned 17th century English architect, Sir Christopher Wren. If you seek a monument, look around you.
As you can see, the National Register of Historic Places in Delaware is featured on our continuing series with the Delaware Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs. We're going to meet now Dan Griffiths. He's Bureau Chief of the Bureau of Archaeology and Historic Preservation. And Dan, thank you for putting together that visual tour we just took.
Thank you, Bob, very much. Enjoyed it.
I think it sets the stage nicely for a little closer look, in-depth look now. I want to ask you, the National Register of Historic Places, what is it?
The National Register, growing from the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966, is a nationwide listing of structures, buildings, sites, and objects that are significant to our understanding of the nation's history, prehistory, architecture. And it's something that the list is prepared by each state and is maintained by the keeper of the National Register, the Department of the Interior National Park Service in Washington, D.C.
Okay, you've explained how it's set up, but how would a property get added to this list of the National Register?
Each state has a State Historic Preservation Officer, and in Delaware, the State Historic Preservation Officer is the Director of the Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs. And that official in each state initiates the process. The actual preparation of the nomination can be accomplished by an individual homeowner, by a consultant, as sometimes happens, by a local preservation planner, as often happens in Delaware, or by our staff at the state office. The nomination is then forwarded to the State Review Board for Historic Preservation, which is a body of professionals and interested citizens that review the nomination both technically and also by using the National Register criteria, which are the criteria against which a property is measured for its significance. There are 4 broad criteria for listing in the National Register. The first is those properties that are significant because of their association with events. For example, the State House in Dover. events surrounding the formation of the state of Delaware, and that property is listed in the National Register. The second criteria are properties may be eligible because of their association with important people. The John Dickinson Mansion is an example of that. Buildings and structures may also be listed in the National Register because they represent specific architectural styles or groups of styles. And finally, the fourth area of criteria is sites that may yield important scientific information, and archaeological sites are those most often listed under that criteria.
If my property is placed on the National Register, will I be restricted in any way as to its use?
No, the National Register listing is a recognition of significant properties and is no way a zoning law at all. A property owner would not be restricted in any way because of listing in the National Register. Any property restrictions will solely be local government restrictions that may result from their own local zoning, but National Register does not restrict a property.
For more information, what numbers might people call?
Call 366-7780 or 571-4130.
Thank you, Dan. That's it for this week's show. Take care and enjoy.